have to do a critical study. I decided, based on all the stuff that we've been doing on the course, that my study was going to be called, the title is bad enough, Perceptions of Bilingualism in a South London Primary School. So I wanted to find out really what our school here thinks of bilingualism. So what are their perceptions? And I've done a lot of reading, and I've read about what children think of their language, of what teachers think of bilingual children, etc. A little bit less about what families think about their bilingualism. And what I thought I would do is an ethnographic, qualitative, small-scale study based on our school population. So I'm talking to the children, the people who work here, the teachers and the TAs, and the parents. And I must say that what I am finding the most interesting, I've done surveys of the teaching and TAs, teaching staff and TAs, of all of the children in Key Stage 2. And now I'm doing some interviews, and I've already interviewed about 15 children in groups, 2 of the staff so far. They're last on my list because they're all doing reports and you can't find them because they're too busy, but I'm hoping that in a couple of weeks that will be over and they'll be a bit more accessible. But what I'm finding most interesting is talking to the parents. And I've done some 30-minute interviews with 5 parents so far, and I want to do a couple more. And they are the most fascinating to speak to, because what I had really no knowledge of was just how passionate they are about keeping up their family languages and making sure that their children are fully bilingual and biliterate if they can be. How many of them go to classes at the weekends, supplementary schools and so on, and even those that don't, what amazing efforts the families are going to maintain their language skills. So I was really taken aback by that, and also by the honesty and the willingness that the parents had to talk to me about what they do at home, what their families do, how they organise their lives and so on. Really fascinating stuff. So I'm at the stage now where I've done all of my surveys and questionnaires, I've done most of my interviews, and my summer holiday I've got to write it all up. So anyway, it's great. I'm really enjoying it. Thank you.
I wanted to speak about a project that I've just started running in conjunction with parents and pupils from various linguistic backgrounds. Because so much of the work that we do is around language acquisition in the classroom and things, but I really wanted a chance to create a space where different stories could be shared, and we could actually kind of connect on a bit of a deeper level with the parents that we have at our school. And to give them a kind of empowerment within that space where they can feel safe and able to share their stories and their different backgrounds. So we've been working in conjunction with Gasworks, I don't know if any of you have heard of, who are based in Kennington. We've got 10 parents and pupils and it's a very diverse cross-section which represents our demographic. So Somalian speaking, Spanish speaking, Portuguese speaking, Slovakian speaking, Polish speaking, and each week for one afternoon we explore a different facet of ourselves. So the kind of pulse of these sessions is that they go between opportunities for the families to share to kind of explore their individual cultural experiences, so to be working with their family unit, and then from that we're trying to kind of provide a space where they can share that within the kind of school community within that space. So it's going between the family unit and then the idea of the school community. As a group, we kind of share things. So for example, in week 1, we were looking at memories of place and creating 3D sculpture. Well, different family units were creating different 3D sculptures of places that were significant to them. So we had, at one point, a gigantic cardboard Somalian flag that came up next to a paper Spanish mountain and a Portuguese farmyard and things. And all of this was kind of stepped up from initially plasticine modelling, and then we went into like this wider kind of world that we then had an opportunity to delve into, and the children were kind of exploring and realising the worlds that they'd created. This week we looked at objects which were significant to their childhood or to their past, and kind of talking about why these were important to them. And then we created a stop motion animation, and each family unit would do one of those in their home language. And I think that's a real crucial thing of what we've been doing, is it's an incredibly fluid linguistic space where there's no kind of set outcome in terms of language acquisition within the space. But because I think so many of the parents who maybe not as confident English speakers know they have the safety net of their home language, they're more willing to experiment and kind of be creative. And so, for instance, there was one family who were from Ecuador who, interestingly, both the mother and the daughter created little dogs, different dogs, because one of the dogs had, which was the mother's object, the girl had never met because the dog had to be left in Ecuador. And so this kind of, just this very simple thing of creating plasticine objects which looked back at their past, kind of created a really honest narrative where I was kind of quite alarmed by, in week 2, they were feeling confident enough to share this very poignant tale of kind of where they'd come from, moving from Ecuador to Spain, and what the dog symbolised in that kind of process. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we've been doing, and I'd really recommend projects like this to be able to go outside the classroom and kind of connect, feel a deeper connection with these diverse backgrounds. Yeah.
What we do in our school is incredible. We support every single child's home language within the curriculum. So every child from age 3, as soon as they enter our school, all the way up to 18, has on average 4 or 5 times a week, 45 minutes of literacy lesson in their mother tongue. We have Japanese, Indonesian, Chinese, German, Italian, French, etc. There's at the moment 17 languages. Next year we're adding Romanian and Afrikaans. We do this because, I mean, we all know this here, we've been saying it a number of times, the stronger a child's home language is, the better their acquisition of English. Which means that in our school, a child who comes in with no English is not seen as a problem. They're seen as being a future bilingual, which makes our life obviously a lot easier. Many of our families are first-time expats, and so for them, although they are from privileged backgrounds, this is a big deal for them. Part of Jane's job is actually also delivering EAL lessons to our parents, because we believe that's important to integrate the parents into our school and into the local community. We realized we needed to make sure that the parents understood the process of bilingualism. So we started running workshops for our parents. And then one day one of the parents said, "Can I bring a friend?" And I said, "Why not?" We now run these workshops every 2 months, and we pull in on average, about 60 people from the local community. We've been doing them now for 2 years, and I keep on thinking this is going to fizzle out, and it doesn't. And everyone has the same questions and worries. Probably then, you know, what people worry about is often literacy. And I'm going to actually flip it on its head, and we actually don't worry about literacy. In fact, we tell families often not to worry about their child being biliterate, because what we find is sometimes the focus is so much on that they forget that to be biliterate, you can't be biliterate unless you're bilingual. And what so many of these families do in their worry about helping their child's English is that they weaken their support of the home language. And so probably our number one message that we must say 100 times a day to everyone is speak in your language to your child. And if you do that, when your child is 30 years old, they can learn the spelling system and become literate in your language. They can't write it if they can't understand it or say it. And the biggest question I get in those workshops, and these are often children who go to local British schools, is how do I help my child with their homework? They go, how do we do it? And the answer we give, and it would be nice to have your opinions, the answer we give is, reading is 2 things. It's decoding, it's the ka'ata, and then it's understanding the message. Your child reads, you help them decode. If they can't figure out, if they can't sound out the word, you say one word, you help them with the word. However, when you're discussing the meaning, we insist on them staying in their home language. when they're having an extended discussion with their child about what's happening on that page and in the picture and what they think is going to happen on the next page, stay in your home language.